Hey, how is everyone today? Jim Davis here from Fluke Networks with more questions for the TAC. This is a question, it hasn't come in very often, but it did come in. And the question was, when will there be an MPO module for our Versiv tester? We have exciting news. Yes. Now, on the one hand, it's very exciting because it's just a new module for Versiv. It will fit right on any Versiv 2 unit. I have a little 2 on it here. Not only does it do MPO, it's also going to do MMC connectors, and not just 12 fiber, also 16 and 24 that we're going to try testing today. So I know it's been a long time coming, but it's going to be worth the wait. Now, I can't emphasize how small of a change this is. If you are used to working with the Versiv tester, if you've been using a CertiFiber Pro, this is going to be a small step for you to pick up what you're doing. Now, if you're unfamiliar with the Versiv platform and you've never used our CertiFiber Pro or the new CertiFiber Max, like all Fluke testers, we've worked to make this as user-friendly as possible so that even low-level or inexperienced technicians can figure out the right way to use it. So we're going to start and just go through a whole project here. Now, if I could, I would be using Linkware Live to configure this project and bringing the project from our cloud service, Linkware Live, down into the tester. We are early, we are pre-beta, and we don't quite have Linkware Live all the way set up, but Linkware Live will be working when we launch this to the public. So the manual method would be to change project, and we're going to create a new project here. Now today's project we're going to call 9/16/25 for some reason. Come on, 5, there we go. Now, you're familiar with the project setup. We would choose an operator. We would choose our test. We would choose our cable IDs. Let's go into the test setup. And the test setup is going to look just like it always has, with one small change. Now we're going to have to pick the connector type, whether it's MPO or MMC. Let's use MPO today. And then we're going to have to tell the tester, are we testing 12? Are we testing 16? Or are we testing 24 fibers? I'm going to start with 24 fiber today, so we'll stick with that. One other new option, because we don't get this with LC and SC, is I'm going to have to decide whether it is a pinned or an unpinned cable. Now I know that today's example is going to be with a pinned cable. Now the other configuration options that we have will be the fiber type. I'm going to choose single mode today. If you have a specific manufacturer's cable, you could choose the manufacturer's cable. When we choose our, that was my fiber type, what I want to choose here is my test limit. And so let's go into the test limit, and I'm going to go to More and TIA, and within the TIA, I'm going to choose Inside Plant, and I'm going to choose the reference value. The reference value contemplates that we're using high quality connectors, so it uses a little bit of a tighter value on the first and last connector. But it is the TIA 568 limit, and the TIA 568 limit is something that we call a variable limit. As we add more connectors, more fibers, more splices, we get more loss budget. We need to be careful to keep in mind what the loss budget is of the application that we're going to be running. And in the tester will measure the length. So the tester knows how long the cable is, but the tester doesn't know how many connections you have. So just like CertiFiber Pro, except we only have a single cable instead of 2, we're going to have to tell it how many connections there are so that it can accurately calculate our loss budget. I'm just going to use 2 connections today, and I don't have any splices on the link that I'm going to be testing. I am going to set a 1 jumper reference, which provides the least uncertainty for this 24 fiber test. All right. Oh, and Because it's MPO, we're going to have to choose a polarity. There are 3 polarities that we commonly find: type A, straight through; type B, where there's a flip; and type C, where there's a flip on every other pair. Most commonly, you're going to find either A or B. But we need to tell it what the polarity is, because maybe that's not the polarity you're looking for. We want to make sure that we've got the polarity right. Now, I am going to add 2 more tests because, have I mentioned inspection? If you've seen any of my other fiber videos, we always talk about inspection. So we are going to pick a fiber inspection test, and I'm going to do my fiber inspection test against the IEC 61300-3-35 limit. Now we're on edition 3. Edition 3 has some very small changes from edition 2, but it is the new version, so we're going to use that one, single mode and for APC connectors, because in the single mode MPO world, everything's going to be APC. All right, I do need to tell it how many fibers there are going to be. And the reason I need to tell it is it might only see 12 fibers and it doesn't know that there's supposed to be 16. And we are going to set up one test for 16 fibers. We'll save that. Let's create one more new test. This new test is going to be for Fiber Inspector Pro. It's going to be against the edition 3 limits. And this one is going to be 24 fibers because, well, 24 fibers is what we want to see today because that's new and different. Now, the cable ID set, I'm going to delete this cable ID set that we have, and I'm going to add a new ID set. This is certainly a place where I would want to use Linkware Live, because if I'm using Linkware Live, I probably have the cable IDs on an Excel form, and I can import the cable IDs from the Excel form into Linkware Live and preload the testers. Now, a nice thing about preloading the testers is, well, I don't have to type in a 57-digit cable ID. And also, I find that when people are doing the testing and they have a lot of testing to do, they might have multiple testers on the job site. So if we use Linkware Live and we pull the configuration from Linkware Live, each one of the testers will have the same configuration. And one person won't test against TIA reference limits and another person testing against standard limits. That's just going to make some work on the back end. All right, so the cable ID that we're going to use today is going to be MPO 24. And real simple here, I'm going to test from cable 01. Now when I jump forward, it brings that forward for me so I don't have to type as much. And I'm going to give myself 50 cable IDs. I don't expect to use all 50. Now you'll see a new option, multi-fiber here. Oh boy, that was worth a video of recording for instructions. Now, I'm going to do inspection, and I'm going to do loss length. I'm not limited to only testing test End1. I can test End1 and End2. Selecting the number of tests I'm going to run ahead of time helps me out because it gives me a percentage complete of the project. And certainly you can exceed that and run extra tests as needed. All right, I think we're all set. We're going to go home. Now, as you know, before we start testing, the first thing we need to do is set a reference. We need to figure out how much light is coming out to start with. So I'm going to, well, I'll push the set reference button. I'm going to cheat forward a little bit. This is how I do my testing, and I think that this will be a useful path for you. Here's something interesting in our new set reference. We give you an inventory of what parts you're going to need because we're starting to have a lot of different cables and connectors. We can have 12, we can have 16, we can have 24, and very similar to what we do with Versiv with the CertiFiber Pro, we have different input adapters. With CertiFiber Pro, we might have an SC or an LC adapter that allows us to do a one-jumper reference. So the adapter that we have on the tester is going to be the same connector type and the same gender as the port that we have in our patch panel that we're going to be testing. Given that there's 12, 16, 24, MPO, MMC, future things, we thought this inventory would be helpful. To start with, we're going to select the test reference cords. And our test reference cords, for reasons that I can't explain, we've been calling Y cables. Maybe they'll have a new name in the future. Because remember, while this looks like a single cord, there are 24 fibers in here. And we're going to split them out into a transmit leg and a receive leg. Consider that your two test reference cords are kind of wrapped into one package here. And what I wanted to show you is just like we're used to. It's drawing it out. It's showing the different colors of the legs. White for 24, gray for 16, black for 12, red is the transmit branch, and yellow, of course, single mode. So having run a couple of tests, I know that I'm going to be plugging red into the output port. Did I say this is going to be easy to use? So we've got the color coordination between the color of the port and the color of the cable. Of course, the input port is white because we've selected a 24 fiber connector. Since I know what I'm going to be plugging in, I'm going to inspect these cables before I get started with the wizard. So this is just me. You can use your own process. I'm going to start with the 16 fiber test. And it's going to say disconnected because we have a physical layer issue here. Today I'm going to be using our FI3000 camera. And on the FI3000 camera, I might have to do a close-up of this later, I'm using a tip that doesn't have a key. Now this keyless tip is nice because I can use a 16 fiber coupler that has the offset key, and that will plug into the tip. And I can also use the 12 fiber adapter that has the key in the center, and that will also slide into the tip. Got this powered on, and let's get this plugged in. Now it might take a second for it to, oh, okay, it did take it a second to realize that it was there. And we are going to start on the remote side. It says remote. Going to start with the red leg, the red transmit leg. Now, this may be a little bit unexpected, but the red transmit leg is always going to be 16 fibers. So I'll plug that in, slide the camera in, and we're going to get a live view of our connector there. We could tap autofocus. I'm going to tap analyze. I really, really want this connector to be pristine and clean. The reason being, I don't want to gum up the port of my tester, and the alignment of this cable at the output is the reason that we set a reference. There's going to be a slight offset. It's 9 microns. It's tiny. I'm using plastic to try an alignment. But that alignment is that alignment, and it's going to cause the loss. I don't want to add any extra loss from possible contaminants. Too few end faces. Oh, it didn't find anything. That's how we know that we're doing this live and not in PowerPoint. Come on, autofocus. There we go. I see 16 connectors. We'll tap Analyze again. And we'll just run. Not only is it capturing the image, but it's analyzing it. It's looking for contaminants and scratches and comparing the results against the requirements of the test limit. All right, 16 fibers passed. We'll take that out and we'll go direct to plugging in the cable. Now, I want to emphasize that I want to keep the dust cap on the cable as long as possible. I don't want to take the dust cap off and be waving the cable around. Where's the cleaner? Where's the microscope? Where's the coupler? No, I want to have a place to take that connector so it's exposed for as short a time as possible. Now I'm going to go to the main, and it says main. Take this dust cap off, slide this dust, take the dust cap off, slide on our coupler. Now I'm going to do this wrong so you get the experience, because since it doesn't have a key, I can plug it in the wrong way. I'm just going to push test here. Do I want to save this result? Sure, why not? All right, it has been saved. Now when I tap autofocus, we're not going to see anything. Now the reason we're not seeing anything is that angle, and the tip is at an angle. But if the tip is at the wrong angle, we're not going to be able to get the focal depth. So just a little heads up on a small catch that could happen here. So we'll plug that in the right way. And hey, there's the image of our 16 connectors. We can tap autofocus in this live view, and I am actually going to look at it and see if there's any dirt on it. And that looks pretty good, so we'll tap Analyze there. I need my neck to be just a little bit longer to be able to get around and see this image of the screen. But we're used to it, and more importantly is you getting a chance to look at that image. Hey, 16 passes, beautiful. Now, later, this will screw you up. I mentioned it. If you're really good with CertiFiber Pro, you're not used to having the output port be in the middle. But the output port is in the middle now. So there we go. Now, I'm going to leave this leg disconnected because, again, normally we have 2 test reference cords. Think of this as your second test reference cord. All right, so now we will go back to home. I'm going to change my test to a 24 fiber test. Use selected, push test to start, and I'm going to get my 24 fiber connection on the leg. Now this would plug in to the patch panel, to the device under test. It is unpinned because we're planning to test a pinned connector. And let's not screw up the direction that we plug it in so we can get a good view of this. Beautiful. Tap Analyze, see if we can find all 24 fibers. And we will get ready to plug that into the input port. And you'll notice the input port is on the right side of the tester now, and not in the middle as it was before. Hey, look at that, 24 fibers passing, beautiful. I want to keep this cable as straight as possible, reality check. It has 24 fibers in it. It has some curves in it. That's going to happen. But again, the ideal is that these cables would be as straight as possible. We've checked that one. Let's check this other one. Push test start. That looks good. Push Analyze. And again, we'll get ready to plug in on the right-hand side. Now, these few moments that we're spending doing this cleaning and inspection, especially with our first test, is going to be quite helpful down the road. We're always concerned about dirt. I don't know exactly how everyone is going to do their testing, or especially their inspection and cleaning. I'm kind of thinking that people might just click their connectors before they try inspecting them. Not going to lose sleep over that. Okay. Here's a fun situation. Not a fun situation. We missed the first connector. You'll see that we're starting with connector 1, but we missed this first one over here. Why did we miss this first one over here? That's life. And because we missed it, I'm going to manually inspect this connector to make sure that this one is in good condition. And I can see that the core is very clean. This connector's fine. We're going to use it. So I'm coming from the remote unit to the main unit. We get the key lined up there. We get the happy noise, just like we always get. All right, so let's get out of here. We'll fix this later. And now we're going to change to our loss test with the smart remote. We'll say use selected, and we're going to say set reference. Now again, as I mentioned, the set reference gives us the inventory of the parts that we need. The uniport adapter, which is the name for our input port, it tells us which cable we're going to need for the main and the remote. Now they have a part number on it. No, I'm not going to make sure you read the part number off of the cables. I think that it's going to be a lot easier to look at it and say yellow, single mode, white, 24 fiber, and you're just going to have to figure out whether it's an MPO or an MMC connector. Now, curiously, let's jump forward in the set reference here. You'll see that we are showing the known good test reference cord is not plugged in. We have a one jumper reference going from our output port to our input port, from our output port to our input port. This will provide us the least uncertainty, as we say in the fiber world. And let's set our reference. Uh-oh, check fiber connections. The measured power level is outside of the expected range. So it's telling us, hey, be careful, you might not have enough power there. So very familiar looking test results. I'll tap on the bubble and look at that. It's showing me the power level for all 24 fibers. We have the power level across all the different fibers. If we tap worst fiber, it will take us to the fiber with the lowest power level. We're good on 1310. We have an error here on 1550 where 1550 is saying, hey, I'm not getting quite enough power. Did I mention this is a pre-beta product? We're not quite there yet. One of the things that we have to figure out is what is the range that we need to work with when we're setting the reference. And I think that what we're going to end up doing is opening up that range a little bit. I don't think there's a problem with this connection, but here's what it would look like. So let's back up. We're still in the wizard. We're going to go to our next step, and we know what our next step is. Our next step is going to be disconnect from the meter on the far side, and then we are going to plug in our known good leg. Now, I'm going to cheat us forward a tiny amount. I have our verification cord already ready, and I don't want to take this cable out and wave it around. I inspected this cable beforehand. People can debate me on the following point. Because the input port, there is an air gap, they're not touching. Same thing with CertiFiber Pro. I generally do not inspect the cable that's going into the input port because it's not touching. It's not getting cross-contaminated. We get the disconnect noise, so we'll plug this in to one end, and we're going to disconnect on the far end and plug this in to the other end of our verification cord. Okay. I wasn't sure when to show this part, but because this part has come up now, let's talk about it now. We have added a new feature, an optional feature, that will count the number of tests that you run, and it will also tell you how long it has been since you set your reference. We have some customers who have said, hey, I want you to run a test within 1 hour of setting the reference. Now, I wanted this error message to pop up when I was playing with it, so I set the limit to 12 minutes. 2 minutes have gone by while I talk about these cables, so it's telling me that I only have 10 minutes until my timer is going to wear out. We'll look at that timer in more detail in a minute. We'll just say okay here now. So don't disconnect from the output port. The output port has the alignment. The alignment is what it is. It might be bad, but leave it there. Don't disconnect and reconnect and get new alignment. You'll need to set a new reference. Power meter, it's okay to disconnect. Now it's going to show us that we need to plug in the receive leg of our test reference cord. So let's take the receive leg of our test reference cord, and we're just going to take a quick look at this with our fiber inspector button. Tap autofocus. Beautiful. I see no contaminants there. So we will disconnect here and plug in our known good cord. Let's do that on the other side. Now I'm also trying to be careful to make sure that I plug the remote into the remote and not the main in. That would be, yes, operator error. Okay, so we'll plug this in. I'm still in our fiber inspector mode. We'll tap autofocus. Beautiful. Now let's go back to the wizard. All right, we're still in the wizard here. And line up the key here, plug this in. And now we're going to jump forward to the next step in setting the reference. And this is going to be the test reference cord verification. MPO connectors are not, there's the happy noise. MPO connectors are not like SC or LC connectors. They have a gender. One is pins, one is sockets, so we can get the proper alignment. So with CertiFiber Pro, we're going to plug our two cords into each other because two LC connectors can align, two SC connectors can align. When we're working with MPO connectors, we can't plug two pinned connectors together, and if we plug two unpinned connectors together, we're not going to get the right alignment. In order to make this process as viable as possible, we're going to use what internally we've been calling a golden cord. And we are going to do our TRC verification with this golden cord. Now, granted, it has two connectors on it, so we're going to have the loss of two connections, but also MPO connectors with their 12 or 16 or 24 fibers do not have the same consistency, the same accuracy that we do with SC and LC connectors. They're going to work fine, but I'm not going to expect 0.25 dB of loss for this connection. So we're lined up, we're plugged in, we'll do our test reference cord verification, and our test reference cord verification has passed. We're good. How do I know it's passed? Because everything is green. I could drill in here and look and see the loss value for each one of the 24 fibers. I can see it at 1310, I can see it at 1550, and here it is showing me the polarity. I mentioned we're using type A polarity for our 24 fiber cable, so we have two rows there. Beautiful. Now, this has already been saved as a test result named TRC date and time, test reference cord date and time. Please don't delete this test result. It'll look funny because you didn't expect a test result named TRC date and time, but include that because that'll help people who need to evaluate whether or not the test was run properly. They're going to want to look and make sure that you had continuity, that the performance of your test reference cord was reasonable. All right, so let's get back here and we will finish up. They'll say take out the golden cable, plug in our cable to be tested. Now, if we have a timer running for how long between each test, the other thing that we want to count is how many tests have we run with this test reference cord. Test reference cords are going to wear out. It happens. They might get dirty. The connections, the end faces can only accept so many connections. So I have a counter now, and I'm going to reset my counter. Do I want to reset the counter? Yes. And now my counter has started, and every time I run a test, my count will increase by 1. So let's get to the important part, running a test, and of course the test time. How long does this take? So we're going to be using the same verification test reference cord because it's just a 24 fiber cable, and we're going to be able to measure the time it takes to run the test if you watch our little counter up here. So break out your stopwatches or your stop cell phones. Make sure I'm not cheating on this time calculation here. We're ready to run our test. Push test to start, 1001. It's faster than CertiFiber Pro. Wow, which is nice because you still have 10,000 more links to test. All right, hey, that is our introduction to the new CertiFiber Max, the MPO, the multi-fiber module for the Versiv platform. I'm Jim Davis with Fluke Networks. Looking forward to taking this one out to the field.